What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. And today I am checking out, or we are checking out, Goji Center. Why is Suko taller than our Kong in 2017? Now I have a few theories on that, and Goji Center might end up answering those questions as well, or like what I kind of think was the issue. Mostly, I think Suko is larger because he's in the Hollow Earth. He was more to the radiation that is in the Hollow Earth than Kong. Kong was on the surface. There was really no energy, I guess, or radiation enough to like help his growth, but also his environment, because he was fighting every day for survival. Suko probably have to do the same thing, but in a different event. Kong fought other monsters and creatures to feed and to survive. Suko probably was in the care, or was being cared for by one of the other apes. Probably the one that got kicked into the lava was his caregiver, or that could have been his mother. Now I think that was his mom. That was like served her purpose. She went back to the work line, and then Scar King got the other suitors, and so he had a caregiver until he was sent out. But he knew the fear of Scar King. Now I know I'm rambling too much and everything, but I hope everybody's having themselves a great day, night, whatever time you are watching this. And also go get you a snack, a drink. I got me some Mountain Dew to watch through this video. So let's go on and get into it. Alright, and 3, 2.
Godzilla Kong, the new empire, introduced us for the first time to the rest of the great apes in live action. But these weren't just any simians, these were Hollow Earth great apes. And because they resided in this environment and not on Skull Island, we are now dealing with different rule sets regarding the growth of these monsters. The task for today is to explain why the adolescent Kong from the film Kong Skull Island is smaller in stature than Suko.
Okay, like right here, we can see Suko size to Kong. But when you look at their, let me see if I could, wait a minute. I was trying to get it where we could see them.
The task for today,
a little bit like frontwards, like we see Kong here. Looks more like how the other great apes, the adults, looked, or somewhat adults.
Is to explain why the adolescent Kong from the film Kong Skull Island is smaller in stature.
And then when you got Suko that just got like that child-like face, or kind of like he's not as matured as Kong is, because of, like I said, he was
stature than Suko, an infant.
But like right here, you can see like in the facial features. But also we gotta think of, Suko is not fully a Kong. Now you're probably wondering, what do I mean not a fully Kong? Suko, if I'm right on this, and I might be, I'm not sure yet, Suko is actually a hybrid between Kong's species and the Scar King species, being a different. But we could see in the whole group, none of the apes really all look the same. Because you could go back and watch the movie, you would see you had chimps, like the one that was ran away from Kong and warned Scar King that he was there. You had the gorillas that was down in the pit moving the boulders, and the two that was Scar King's two guards, I guess you want to say, or henchmen to his army. And then you kind of could look around and could see other ones that kind of did not resemble Kong or chimpanzees, but there are different species of gorillas, and I think, or apes, I should say. There are plenty of different species, so they are all kind of in one big group. So you got to look at, there could be other hybrids. But let's get back into this. I'm sorry.
Yes, if this is your first time hearing this fact, this may sound a little bizarre. How is an infant taller in stature than a teenager? Well, in this episode, we will discuss exactly why Suko managed to grow taller than Kong when he was a teenager, and go as far as explaining how Kong managed to grow taller than most of the great apes in Hollow Earth. Pay close attention because you don't want to miss any details. Subscribe and get ready to watch Suko's and Kong's growth rate explained.
We're already subscribed to that, but if you are not, go subscribe to them.
Phenomenon, we must first match up who we are talking about. Suko in Godzilla Kong: The New Empire measured approximately 149 feet in height.
Big
For
baby
reference,
right there.
that is just 2 feet shorter than the Statue of Liberty. Very, very tall nonetheless. Pay attention to how this one has infant proportions. What is this? Infants are often characterized as having an enlarged head, large eyeballs, and a small body in comparison to its skull. This is what makes a baby look like a baby. As your body grows to adolescence, your skull tends to grow at a slower rate than the rest of your body. This is why adults, in most cases, have a smaller head in comparison to their bodies, giving them the said adult body proportions that make them look like full-grown individuals. Suko, as you can see, can be categorized as an infant due to these characteristics. Now comes the adolescent Kong from 1973. This one was considered a teenager. You'll immediately note that its body proportions resemble that of an adult more than an infant. Kong, however, only measures 104 feet in height here, a whole 45 feet shorter than this infant. This is where most people scratch their heads and wonder, how is this even possible? Well, the answer lies in where these two grew up. Suko here grew up in a place known as Hollow Earth. Down in the bowels of the planet lies an incomprehensibly vast environment with resources to adequately sustain large life forms. Kong, on the other hand, grew up in Skull Island, an isolated island somewhere in the Pacific that is often described as Hollow Earth come to the surface, a mini version of the flora-fauna that is found in Hollow Earth. Here's one of the reasons why Suko was already taller than Kong.
All right, I'm going to pause it right there for a second because, like I just said, you got to look at their two environments. So, one, I was correct, and that was a little bit of a give, because everybody probably should have known that, and everything else. But he also did say that Skull Island is a mini version of the Hollow Earth, and that is something we all know if we, like, going back, watch the older movie and some other stuff. So that is another good example. But also with hopefully he is going to get into that. I'm sorry I keep pausing the video.
But this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more reasoning behind this. Enjoying this episode? Here's a quick reminder to subscribe and to also click the link below to check out our official Goji Center merch, as well as graphic tees showcasing the most powerful predators of all time. For better context, we'll have to go back to the graphic novel Skull Island: Birth of Kong. We are introduced to a tribe of these great apes that lived here on Skull Island. You'll note that these apes don't really measure up to the size of adult Kong, who measures 337 feet in height. These apes were a little less than 2/3.
Wait, I'm going to pause it right there because, like he just said, not as tall as Kong. Yes, they are not as tall as Kong, but they are at about the size of all those other apes that are in the Hollow Earth that Kong found. Since they all, some of them came up to his shoulder, some of them came up to Kong's like nose, like the one that he knocked out. What? Okay, I don't know what that was about, but sorry about that. But like I was about to say, the ape that Kong knocked out when he helped the other one came up to about his eyebrow level, and so he was about not as tall as Kong, but a little bit almost as tall. While some of the others came up to like chest or mid chest area, like the one that he helped up, and all the others. So his parents were about that size or a little bit shorter because they had to adapt to a different environment. Let's get back into the video.
Of Kong's adult form. But why? Let us explain.
Please
Here
do.
on Skull Island, growth rates are different from that of Hollow Earth apes due to environmental
Like I
and
said,
biological constraints. Hollow Earth is practically infinitely more vast than this island, limiting the growth cap of these creatures. Additionally, these great apes seem to have suffered from a phenomenon known as indeterminate growth. meaning that factors such as space, food quality, resources, and most importantly stress were a major reason why these guys never reached the height of the larger Hollow Earth apes, being capped in height at around 200 feet or so. Stress was likely the larger factor here. It is a well-known fact that these apes shared this island with the skull crawlers. Vicious, relentless predators that when not sleeping were always hunting. The rivalry between these two species reached a point where they began killing each other in large numbers. This was perhaps the biggest stressor that limited the growth of these apes. Eventually, this conflict was rendered down to a last stand where many apes, including Kong's parents, were killed. The finishing blow inflicted by Ramarak, the assassin that killed Kong's parents right before his...
Wait a minute. I'm sorry I'm pausing it right here. But no, that is not actually true, because if you go back, when he was even talking about, you saw there was more than just one Skullcrow. Let's see if we can get back to about right here.
Kong's parents were killed. The finishing blow inflicted by Ramarak, the assassin that killed Kong's parents
But no, there was a couple of Ramarak size. They were not mini size because they also had the elbow spike, and they had the tips on the tail. So no, it's not just one Skullcraw that took it down. This is the one that survived and kept like living, that wasn't taken out by Kong or has just went back to the Hollow Earth. This one stayed and everything. But no, when they say, oh, one Skullcraw took out Kong's parents, no. It was actually a couple of them that took them out. As you could even see that Kong's... I'm going to find it, so, because I know a lot of y'all are going to say something about it. See if it will pop up on here. Yes, just like right here. 1, 2, and Kong's father is fighting 2 of them right here. So I have seen the comic that he's actually got one in this hand and one in that hand that he just slammed together. See, that's 4 Skullcrawlers right there that are fighting them. So they had... And you can see that these all have the trait that the other one had. Like right here. Here's a spike right here. This one has it too. And that back plate adult Skullcrawlers have.
This conflict was rendered down to a last stand where many apes, including Kong's parents,
so I'm going to let it continue from here.
The finishing
but no, that is something I wanted to talk about.
The assassin that killed Kong's parents right before his very eyes. Not only that, but this happened immediately after he was born. If that's not stressful enough, then imagine being a 40-foot infant ape on an island full of predators with absolutely no one to take care of you. If anything, the stress would have only been higher for infant Kong than the stress inflicted on a whole group of apes with each other to rely on under the threat of Skullcrawlers. Further evidence of this increased stress on Kong, consider that apes,
because if it was just one against
usually
2,
surpass half of the height of the
happen.
parents by adolescence in most cases. This Kong in 1973 only gets past this threshold by a bare minimum. Something is a little bit off here. Kong between infancy and adolescence has grown less than he should. Why? Stress. Ramarak was still around, and the presence of this one plus the remaining predators would have made Kong go through the said indeterminate growth, limiting his potential greatly. Between infancy and early stages of adolescence, this smaller Kong would develop the previously mentioned adult proportions, but not adolescent height. It was after he managed to kill Ramarak that he finally was able to unlock full growth potential. Not only did he kill the most dangerous predators around, but he now had a whole ecosystem all to himself, establishing himself as the apex predator on the island, and close to nothing was able to challenge his spot on the food chain. This is why it was mentioned in GVK that he grew very fast in very little time, more than 233 feet in only 51 years.
So I guess they're not going to talk about
just stop here. Ironically, Kong ended up growing taller than many of the great apes in Hollow Earth thanks to having the island all to himself. Let's go back to Suko. Hollow Earth apes would be around the same size as a full-grown Kong, meaning that proportionally speaking, their infants would by default be around this height, which so happens to be around the size of teenager Kong, whose parents suffered through some sort of dwarfism due to ecological circumstances discussed already. This is why infant Kong was so small also, because his parents were small compared to Hollow Earth apes. Suko admittedly was not a newborn infant. We'd like to think that Suko was the equivalent of an 8 to 11-year-old. Not quite the adolescent, but also not a newborn infant. One who lived long enough to endure and remember the abuse inflicted on him by the Scar King, and one able to fight back if attacked. An adolescent Suko would then adopt the characteristics of a subadult great ape. A lengthened body, limbs, and smaller head compared to his body. Similar to his parents, whoever they were, but most likely Scar King himself being the father. That's right, in a scene during the film, we can very quickly witness an interesting detail in Scar King's throne room. Upon getting up and roaring, a few female apes began to shelter their offspring from the Scar King. What color were they? Brownish red, identical to Suko. Which brings up the next question. If Scar King actually was the one who fathered Suko, how tall could this guy actually get? And could he outgrow Kong? Well, given that all things in the Monsterverse could literally be a dumb writer's pen stroke away from becoming reality, we can't predict whether or not Suko will be taller or not. However, based on the parents of Suko alone, we can predict that he might be a little taller than or around.
I'm going to talk about something real quick. Yes, Scar King is slightly shorter than Kong, but Scar King is an alpha titan as well, or classified as a titan towards the other apes. Kong is an alpha. So with that, I had the word, I'm sorry, but Suko could actually grow larger than Kong because of his dad being an alpha, but also being around Kong and learning from Kong, and probably when he gets older, Kong will probably spar with him or something like that, because Kong has opened up a whole new world to these other apes. Well, probably not a new world, but if you kind of think what I'm trying to say is, they are caught into that little cave. Kong has freed them, so more likely Kong's going to let them out into the open. So they will probably get more food and everything else. So yes, Suko probably might get taller, or might get as tall as Kong and be more like broad like he is, instead like his dad and everything else. I just wanted to talk about that real quick, or just wanted to speak my mind.
The same size as Scar King, who was at around 318 feet in height. Scar King belonged to a species of great ape that was more lanky and agile instead of muscular like his adoptive father Kong. Suko's mother was probably one that resembled Kong a little more, with characteristics similar to a larger gray or brown gorilla. So, based on his parents alone, Suko should end up looking like this. But if we account for the effects of Hollow Earth, much more vast prey variety, and being looked after properly by a father figure, Suko might end up larger and more powerful than we think. There is still more to learn about the race of these great apes and their different kinds. Subscribe to not miss our episode explaining the many different types of ape titans seen so far in the Monsterverse. More episodes covering Godzilla Kong the New Empire, and more kaiju fights.
Ooh. Alright. So, go and get these off. But yes, that was awesome and everything. I kind of learned a little bit more, and I was also talking, so I'm sorry about if I ranted more than what I should have. But yeah, I hope everybody enjoyed the video, and I hope to see everybody next time.